Director in Student Leadership and Involvement. I'll pass it to Adrian.
Hello, I'm Adrian Riley. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Associate Director for Psych Student Union. Go ahead, Liliana.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Liliana. I'm actually a graduate assistant with the Dowdy Multicultural Center. So I'm also a student. I'm a master's in social work student. And this is my first year. And that leaves you, Steve.
Nice, cool. I know I was setting an example by leaving myself unmuted with distractions as to how to not be present in a Zoom meeting. No, just kidding. But yeah, Steve, I think I know everybody, but yeah, experiential educator. Okay, cool. And then we'll go ahead and get started. So yeah, so one of the things we think about when we're on Zoom is we get hung up that we're sitting at our desk. We start to think about, we get in this hunched position. I'm fortunate enough to have a standing desk, so I'm currently standing. If you ever see me fall over, it's because I have a balance board and I have fallen in Zoom meetings before. Which is okay, mixes it up. So when we're going into meetings and spaces, especially when we're working with students or we're guiding meetings, we want to consider that movement piece as a major component of how we show up in those spaces. And a fun fact I'll share with you real quick too is I always mute my self view on Zoom. There's a lot of different data that's coming out that shows that we get focused on ourselves when we're speaking, and that plays with your mind a lot. And a big component of, it's called Zoom apnea, which is a funny term, is that we don't breathe normally. So that's one of the reasons we're so fatigued at the end of the day. Especially, I've been on Zoom since 8 a.m. this morning. I had a little lunch break, but thinking about consciously how we breathe. So whenever I start off, I always want to encourage people to take a nice deep breath, sit with it a little bit so we can do a nice inhale. Hold it in for a little bit. And then let's exhale, do a nice big exhale. Exhale all that negative energy, maybe the stresses of the week as we think about our positivity for the weekend. Let's do one more nice inhale. Enjoying the sun, thinking about all the fun we're going to be having, maybe some relaxed time. All right, cool. So always think about that. I also like to stretch out too. Just, you really want to be conscious of this as we're in our meeting spaces as we're going. So to get us really engaged, I'm going to invite you all to stand up if you're comfortable with that or able to. You can also do this well seated. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our right arm and we're just going to do a movement with our right arm real quick. So, all right, get fired up and loosened up. And it is more fun with your video on so we can see each other. But if you're not comfortable, that's okay too. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, perfect. All right, let's do it a little bit faster. I'm already starting to break a sweat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so obviously we had to keep both sides even. So let's move on to our left. But this one, we're going to do something a little bit different. So again, we're going to do 6 total movements, but this time we're going to go 1, 2 is going to be straight to the side, and 3 is going to be straight down. All right, so let's try that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, and a little bit faster. Let's get the blood moving. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And obviously we're striving to live a fully balanced life. So we're going to incorporate both movements at the same time. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's see if we can do it a little bit faster. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. Yeah, I'm starting to break a sweat. Whew. All right, good. Yeah, so that's a really good engagement activity. It actually does have some neurological benefits to it. There's some intentionality behind why the left and the right side of the brain move a little bit differently. But that's really a fun way to get meetings kicked off. That's actually how I started every single FYE session I facilitated this past fall semester. Especially some of them were at 8 a.m. Really got the students moving and got it started on some of that engagement. All right, so I asked you to grab a piece of paper. Man, I gotta get walking more. I'm breathing a little heavy today. But so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a piece of paper and we're gonna cut a hole in it. And we're gonna try to get it over our body. So everybody, if you want to grab a piece of paper, if you don't have scissors handy, you can fold it in half and you can kind of tear in the middle if you want to. Let's see if we can get it around us without tearing. Oh,
I love that Sandy and I are just like giving you straight side eye. We're like, Steve, this isn't even fitting around me, friend.
yeah, I don't know how this is gonna work. And yeah, I tore it, so we're already set up. All right, so who thinks that this is a possible activity? Thank you, Patricia, for your confidence. So this is the same size sheet of paper right here. So all you have to do, and you can even tear it if you don't have scissors, is we fold it in half again. And really important, don't tear it the whole way. And then flip it over. And then flip it back. Flip it over. Flip it back. Flip it over. Oop. Getting a little excited, but that's okay. Cool. So now when we open it up, you're gonna have that piece in the middle, and we're just gonna tear that, or if you have scissors, you can cut it. The first one I did is the demo. I used scissors. And now I can pretty much easily get that. I broke that one, so I'm gonna do the original one as I take time. Effortlessly just falls down my body. Oh, and Sarah made a snowflake, which is exciting. Cool. So in thinking about this activity, what thoughts came up? One person said they thought it was possible. Why do we think that when we're given a problem, we think it's impossible and get hung up in that impossibility? This is the participation part of the activity.
Sometimes we only think of one way of approaching a situation.
Yeah, so oftentimes we get hung up in the standard approach or what we've done in the past. Obviously, we're in a completely new environment trying to figure out things. There's no textbook about student affairs in a virtual setting. So figuring out new things as we go. Any other thoughts?
Our perspective needs to change. Like you hold up a square sheet of paper, so it seems like you might be asking, like you're already setting parameters and barriers on how we're visually seeing something. And then you asked our minds to construct it in a different way. So it also helps trigger some of that. How are we seeing things and what's that perspective?
Yeah, so shifting those perspectives, we get hung up. We see one problem, or and we think about one solution. I said cut a hole, so we cut a hole. I took a big chunk out. This is the whole chunk that I took out of my original hole. And think about how those resources could really have been spread. And when you saw the second example, that was a humongous hole that I was easily able, I didn't even have to fold my arms or anything. I could just like flip it right over me, hula hoop and all that. So in this situation, when we're thinking about our budgetary constraints, our lack of student staff, limited programming availability, we do have a lot of resources available to us. So thinking about how we can maybe shift the way we approach those resources to really expand what we can offer to make that direct student impact. So, and then I'm just going to do another one with a piece of paper real quick. So this is another one. You can get people moving. So you can take a new piece of paper and you can fold it in fours. So and then you're going to tear a hole in the center of it or cut a hole. And now let's see if we can poke our head through the hole without tearing the paper. And when you get it, you can turn off your video if you think you got the solution. Whoa. All right, so we're gonna poke our head through the hole.
Nice.
So reframing our perspective. So keep that in mind. So those are two things you can do with 2 pieces of paper. Most people should have them around there if you're setting them up for the meeting. And obviously you want to encourage people to be taking notes and all that. So those are 2 things. And then I will, I mean, I have a ton of activities, but I'm excited to learn from my co-facilitators today. So thank you for joining me in that.
Man, Steve is a hard act to follow. So I'm going to be walking folks through, if you are a PowerPoint fan, you are a PowerPoint adherent, and that is your jam, and that is the way that you like to operate in your Zoom meetings. I'm going to share a few tools that I utilize frequently to help with engagement around those types of meetings. So I'm going to share my screen. What I'm using is a template. I'll put a link in the chat from Leading Groups Online, which is from Training for Change. It's a wonderful, wonderful, abundant resource that has a lot of free things available that you can tweak and use for your own uses. Some of the features that this has that I will not be showing you, some basic intro to tech slides. Even though we've been doing this for a year, sometimes it's helpful to have reminders around how to mute yourself, unmute, depending on who your audience is. Maybe you want to allow folks to not have video on. It can be nice to make that explicit at the beginning of a meeting as well. And then, one of the struggles in a lot of meetings that I am in is that first introduction piece. Everyone go around, share who you are, share what's going on with you. So this is one tool that I really like to use that's easy to tweak, to share, especially if you have a committee or a group that is already ready to go and intact. Since it's a small group today, I won't make us go around in this circle. I am going to make you do a few other things. But this is a template that makes the popcorning awkwardness and some of those other things that happen in meetings just run a little more smoothly. It gives people visual prompts. Some folks are more visual learners and interactors. And again, I use this in a majority of meetings that I facilitate because it just helps set the stage well for whatever conversation you're going to engage in. Then we're going to show another tool here in a little bit, but I wanted to provide this lovely sticky note piece here. So if you have not annotated on Zoom, on your Zoom screen, you should see a little, on your Zoom menu, you should see a little pencil that says annotate. And you can select text and you can type things into here. So I invite folks to type and share things that they have seen. I'm going to hide the names of our annotators so we can be clear and share whatever we would like honestly and openly on here. So I'd invite folks to take a few minutes to share some of the challenges that you have witnessed participating in about 1 million online meetings at this point.
Lindsay, I can't figure out how I make a comment.
Sure. So can you find the annotate piece on your Zoom menu? Like if you can see where you mute, stop video, you should have a pencil.
My
And
annotate is up top under view options.
If you have dual monitors and you have it set up to show on your second monitor, it goes above your second monitor too. So
Maybe, do you think it's because I haven't upgraded?
Oh, no, you should still have it available to you even if you haven't upgraded.
All right. Well, I will just enjoy my colleagues' comments.
Well, I'm sorry because you will not be able to participate in the next activity either, but it's good to know. Again, we want people to get comfortable with the annotate feature because that's good. I'm seeing a lot of comments here. And again, I think one of the advantages of using this is it can be anonymous as long as you turn that feature off, because I think that's one of the struggles in a lot of online meetings I've been in. Lack of participation, no one speaking in the beginning. You can see some people are using annotate also gives you the ability to stamp. And so if you want to endorse a comment that someone made, I'm putting a star by meetings are too long, no agenda, right? So some of the things that maybe are best practices for general meeting facilitation as well, but can feel a lot more uncomfortable for folks in the virtual setting. Thank you, Steve, for that support link in the comments as well. Yeah, unnecessary pressure to use video. That's why I highly recommend using the standard slide from this package to indicate to folks whether or not video is used. Could have been an email, yes. I think we also need to think about when we're having an online meeting, does it need to be a meeting? Can it be a phone call? It doesn't always have to be on Zoom. Zoom also gives us this false sense of all this. That is not great. So I'm gonna save this picture. That's another great thing as the facilitator. You can save it. An important thing to know when you're doing annotate is you have to clear it, because what you can happen in your meeting is you go to the next slide and then you leave it up and people cannot see what comes next. See, that is not what you want to have happen. So I want to make sure you have the ability to clear all drawings before moving on. Another thing that I like utilizing from This package is a quick check-in to assess where people are. You can use this for any sort of prompt. Again, you use the annotate feature to indicate on a scale. You can just draw or stamp where you feel like you are with your own abilities to utilize technology. Again, I'm glad to see most people feel pretty comfortable at this point with how to use technology. I think, again, Adrian did use a non-anonymous option. The arrows are not anonymous, but the stamps and other pieces are. I think, again, one thing I've seen missing from a lot of meetings is that ability to stop and check in with folks, just kind of storming through the agendas, which often are too long or sometimes unclear. So always planning in advance and being thoughtful about what you want people to take away and what you want folks to know. So again, I'll drop the link in the comments. I highly recommend using this whole package. Training for Change has a lot of wonderful, wonderful online facilitation tools. So thanks for playing along with our annotation, and I'm going to turn it over to Patricia.
Thanks, Lindsay. So I'm going to talk a little bit, hopefully I can do this correctly. Jamboard, which is one of my favorite tools that we've been using in student leadership and involvement for kind of that same thing of either checking in with people during an activity, during a meeting, or before the meeting begins. Sorry, as I move my screen around so I can see everything that I need. So Jamboard is 100% a free product from Google. Anyone who has a Google account can use it. And they have made plenty of upgrades over the course of the pandemic that make it even better than what it was a couple years ago. And full disclosure, I have been using Jamboard for years, even before we went completely virtual. So that's probably why I like the tool so much. If you've never made it, it's just jamboard.google.com. You sign in with your Google account. I already signed in because if I'm on Zoom and I'm asked to sign in, I always forget my password. And then you just click on the lovely orange button for a new jam. And now you have what's basically an interactive whiteboard for the easiest frame of reference. You have the opportunity and the options to change your backgrounds. So you can use dots, you can use notebook paper, etc. They've also introduced since December the ability to set your background graphic to whatever you want. So for example, I'm going to pick something random. I was working on this. We're using this weekend for an activity where we're doing an assessment and we're asking everyone to put where they are in that category. And so they would do it just by clicking on the lovely sticky note, typing in their name. And we kind of have the opportunity as the facilitator to kind of see where everyone is kind of from that perspective for this type of activity. The other thing we'll do, and I'll give you guys a minute till you can play with some of these too, is you can use text, put whatever question you want. So like if you go with Lindsay's, how, like, this is where I can't spell in front of people, but to see it live, like if I said your favorite food today, or like, you know what, we'll make it easier. Sorry guys. You can see, so like, what did you have for lunch? As an example, I'll share it with everyone. So you can change your link to be anyone with the link. You can change it to viewer. You can change it to editor. So you just copy link. When I do it in a chat, I will throw the chat in the link for a Jamboard that everyone now has access to, regardless if you have a Google account or not. So if you want to open it, you have the option to anonymously add whatever you want for the question. You can see exactly as a facilitator how many people have joined your board. So for example, if you know you've got 20 people in a meeting and only 4 people have joined, sometimes that prompts me like, where is everyone? Where are you at? You can either add by Post-it note, you can move Post-it notes around, you can add with a text box, you can write on it with a pen, and you can use eraser. And someone got super fancy, probably Steve, maybe Lindsay, who jumped ahead and even went with an image. So it does give you multiple ways to allow anyone in your meeting to express their thoughts, express their reflection on what you're talking about, kind of moving forward with those things. I can also, now that I know 3 people have responded, maybe that's all I want and we're done with letting people contribute, I can change it to just be viewer. So how we've used this frequently in student leadership and involvement, particularly with students, is, and I'll give you guys the example, hopefully that still shows, is I might send them a January a question out to them via email, and then I'll turn off editing and give them a deadline to turn editing, like throw all your thoughts, throw your brainstorms, throw your solutions to it. When we come together on the Zoom call, I'll share our screen and we'll move things around as they connect. So it allows people to come in to be reflecting, to processing before they have to show up, and allows me to also dictate kind of the agenda or know if no one's ready to come to the meeting, are we really in a spot that we're going to have a productive conversation ahead of time? I sometimes give them a specific color and say, like, you have green post notes, you have blue, you have orange, you have yellow. So I kind of know who's paid attention and who hasn't, for that part too. So that's another way that we've used it, because we can very easily move them, we can change them, we can see whose ideas are bouncing off of each other. And especially in the space where everyone's kind of operating in different mindsets or different processes, it gives them that opportunity to contribute on their time. If maybe they're coming straight from class or they're coming from another Zoom meeting and your mind's already tired, I'll use that parameters. I'll also throw them in the chat. So this is another example of a set image, like that's already there, versus on Lindsay's, where did it go? Sorry, guys. Lindsay's example, this image, anyone can edit and change. So that's the difference. Ooh, that looks really tasty, actually. So that would be different if you just want to use pictures versus setting your background. And then when you're done, you can just hit clear frame from that part. You can also then download them as a PDF, save it as an image, and make a copy. So frequently we're doing a lot of activities where we might be sending people to breakout rooms, and I might want them to all be doing the same questions or the same processing questions. I might just make copies and then send each group a link specific to their group from that, for that. The other thing that Jamboard allows you to do, and this is just an example of multiple ones so you can see how you could, where did it, and you click off of something and they disappear, is you can very easily rearrange by dragging and dropping. So if you're doing very similar to how Google Docs or Google Slides, which can sometimes play a role if you're continuing to add on to Jamboards from like multiple meetings or like recircling back around, you can add it so it's not the first thing someone always sees from that part, and you can just keep adding on as many as you want. It is 100% free product to kind of facilitate that part. And if you've got an excessive amount of information, you can also use the laser. So that's kind of how we've been using it for different pieces, different meetings, different brainstorming. We found a lot of success with especially using it, sending it out in an email beforehand, or having it ready to go as a backup if everyone is staring with black screens and no one wants to contribute. We'll put a Jamboard with the question in the chat and prompt, be like, I need everyone to put one thought on the board. And I usually introduce it with saying spelling doesn't count, because spelling doesn't count, and just keep it professional and be aware of language that's being used, because you are trusting the people in your call to they're the ones who are responding. You're not pre-approving things or having to contribute from that part. So that is the one catch that I sometimes put in, depending on how many people are on the call and what frame of activity we're using it for. I know Sweegee's use it a lot. I know some other groups have used it, but that's kind of how we've been using it throughout before the pandemic and now during the pandemic too. It kind of gives you that whiteboard, sticky note kind of feature. So yeah, I forget who goes next. Sorry, Lindsay.
I believe I'm next. I would like to discuss with you all how the Dowdy Multicultural Center is using videos to engage people. We have students, staff, faculty join our events. I was going to put up a PowerPoint, but I do usually prefer not to do that if possible so we can see each other. So I'll just talk at you a little bit. It's not too much information anyway, but sometimes I think people do like the visual, so if that's needed, PowerPoint. But mainly, I'll just tell you a little bit about what we're doing, and we'll do an example too, especially since it's a small group. So what we do is we show a short video, especially if you have, depending on how much time you have, you might want it to be shorter, but we try not to let it take up all of the time so that there is more time for discussion about the video. In the beginning, we let participants know that we'll be showing a video and that then we're going to ask everyone to contribute to the discussion. And I always pitch it as, we want to hear from all of you just to make sure everyone is engaged. We then play videos. This is important that have significant content, right? You want to make sure that you're finding something engaging, funny, maybe, or like really thought-provoking. One thing I've seen in some of my classes is that sometimes people try to play videos, but if they don't have good internet connection and they don't know how to get their sound going through Zoom, that can be an issue. So you just want to make sure that you're prepared to share a video and that you're able to do that. And if you're not, then someone else on your team that might have better internet can do that. After we show the video, we ask participants to share their main takeaways. We just kind of open it up generally like that. And we do encourage everyone, like I said, we do try to use the popcorn style, but I actually really like what Lindsay showed us earlier. Maybe we can try that in the future. And we also participate ourselves as facilitators, to, build community with everyone. And if you have time, depending on what kind of meeting you're having, it's good to have some facilitation questions prepared to guide the group into more discussion. So watch the video yourself and have really just a few questions. Typically, it's better to have less questions because, well, from what we've seen, people do end up talking about the questions that you ask. So you don't need to have that many, or even with the takeaways, people will go and have more conversation based on that, on what other people have said. And depending again on what kind of meeting you're having, if if it's a team meeting with your team, of course you don't have to do introductions, but typically we have to do introductions because we're having new people join us for our different activities. So I have an example for you all. We're going to watch really quickly a 3-minute video about art history, and then I will ask you all to do a main takeaway. We'll just do that part, but normally I would do some facilitation questions. But again, having kind of a short meeting and you just want to do this to engage people really fast, you can just do a main takeaways and get everyone participating. So give me a moment and I will share the video. And please let me know if you can't see or hear for whatever reason. You can type to me in the chat or just unmute yourself and let me know. Sorry, were you all not able to hear that? Okay. I just got a new computer, so my Zoom is kind of set up a little, not really setting up that great. Let's try again.
The history of art in 3 minutes. The oldest art we know of is about 40,000 years old. It was painted on cave walls or sculpted from rocks and consisted mainly of people killing animals or each other. An exception to that rule is the famous Woman from Willendorf, an abstract sculpture of a faceless obese lady wearing no clothes except a shower cap. After a while, people started to write things down, and proper history began. Civilizations developed in Egypt, Persia, Mesopotamia, Greece, Rome, India, and China. This highly significant period in art history gave the world pots, earthenware, crumbling temples, more pots, gods, warriors, warriors on pots, gods on pots, cats, and god cats on pots. In the Middle Ages, the West was dominated by the Church, who disputed the validity of all the old gods and says there was in fact only one. Art could no longer feature unrealistic things like multi-limbed elephant dancers or winged bearded man horses, but had to be about things that happened in the Bible. This more realistic, down-to-earth approach gave us morose men in yellow hats, morose men in pink shawls, and lots of glowing babies. Then came the Renaissance and a return to the material world. Real-life places were rendered in 3 dimensions, convincing use of perspective became widespread, and the human body was shown as it really is. Many images, however, remained religious in nature, and so also featured flying men with laser beam eyes, done realistically. Eastern art continued to develop in its own distinct way, often showing scenes from nature or the everyday world, like mountains, people kissing, or men in dressing gowns getting angry at other men in dressing gowns for riding albino dogs. Then came modern art and the dawn of the isms. Impressionism, Expressionism, Cubism, Dadaism, Surrealism, and other isms too numerous or rude to mention. The experiences of global war, the march of technological progress, and the popularization of theories about the universe and the human mind, as espoused by the likes of Einstein and Freud, left their indelible mark on our species. The artistic gloves were off and it was time to experiment. Shapes, splats, blocks of colour, ghost pokes, weeping women, fluorescent lights, urinals, and unmade beds. All could be considered art in this brave new world. People argued the point, saying some modern art was shit, and some of it really was.
Modern art! Look at it! It's fucking shit!
Art today is a many-headed creature. The need to create is clearly part of the human condition, an unquenchable desire which is as old as our species and quite probably embedded in our DNA, as innate to us as eating, fighting, and laughing at other people's misfortune. But it's also big business. You're equally likely to see famous artwork on a mug, a t-shirt, or in a boardroom as in a gallery. The rise of cinema, television, and the internet has led to a dissemination of a common visual culture into every corner of the globe, while the giddying pace of technology's ceaseless progress has democratized the entire means of artistic production, meaning we can now plug into an all-encompassing worldwide maelstrom of information at any time we like, and watch a load of jumping badgers.
All right, and it basically ends like that. Were you all able to hear it after I fixed it? Okay. Yeah, so does anyone want to start? I know that this is not necessarily on topic, but I thought it was a little bit of an engaging video. So does anyone want to start us off and tell us what their main takeaway was from the video, and then please popcorn to the next person. And usually if people are not participating, I will get people started. So for me, what I thought was really interesting is the idea that I think comes up a lot is, you know, can anything be art, or is there some type of criteria? Yeah, so that was one of my main takeaways, is just thinking about that. I don't have an answer, but it's a really good thing to think about. What did you think, Lindsay?
I mean, I was an art history minor, so when I was in college, so I'll out myself as that. But I think I appreciated the use of humor to kind of poke fun at the dominant cultures of art, and how, you know, again, the things like the glowing babies and the laser-eyed gods. Like, I appreciated that, you know, the Western conceptions of art that we tend to think of as classical, and poking a little bit of fun at that, because I do think a lot of Eastern art especially is ignored when we think about art history. So that was one of my takeaways. And then I think I maybe saw Sarah unmute, so I'll go to Sarah.
Sure. I think what struck me is just, and this is not rocket science, but just the importance of art to our culture, and that it has always been a critical part of our culture and societies all around the world. I'll popcorn to Patricia.
I think what's with me is I kind of appreciated also the humor part that was kind of evidence a little bit. I think sometimes we think of art history and we think of art as being very elite, or like you've got to be super smart to understand it. So I kind of appreciate that. And then I'll be honest, the Badgers at the end kind of threw, I wasn't expecting that, which also, like, but then I was like, I remember seeing those videos, like memes and everywhere. So Adrian, your comment in the chat, I started was like, yep, that doesn't seem like that was really that long ago, but it probably actually was in some ways. So I think I appreciate that was like kind of that, and that the graphics kept moving. Like it wasn't a video that had like it was a video that kept you interested, like things were moving around kind of from that part. So I also kind of like that, and it kind of got my mind thinking too. Do you want me to keep popcorn, Lillian? Okay, I'll go to Lexi.
I thought it was really fun. I liked that it was provocative and definitely caught your attention. I think that students really connect with like provocative videos. Like, I mean, as someone, I kind of even liked the cursing in it because it felt like, whoa, it got your attention. You're like, dang, this is kind of fun. And that's not because I'm some sort of crazy person, but I really did enjoy that piece of it because I think so often, like Lindsay said, and Patricia, like we think about art as being so kind of stuffy and elitist, but it's like, it really at that time and at these pieces, like when you look at it objectively, it is glowing eyes. It is a glowing baby. It's a cat god, which I loved. So I thought it was really fun. And I appreciate you sharing that as something that's like totally unique to what we're doing on a typical basis. Popcorn Steve.
All right. I took it a little deeper, which probably doesn't surprise people, but about how it started at the beginning. There's all this creativity and also practical things like, oh, we're using like pots that you use to then actually carry food and things like that. And then as quote unquote modernization happened and we started to develop this dominant sense, it completely like tore down all that creativity and was like, no, this is the way, there's no other way around it. And then I liked at the end then how there's that resurgence of that critical challenge and how like abstract art comes into play. And I'm really into like art-based advocacy, so it's like a fun thing. So I really appreciate that resurgence and even challenging how we use art in our scholarship. How like I have to find the article, like there's poetry as an IRB was a really cool paper I read the other day, and so rethinking those things. And then I'll bounce it over to my good friend Cindy.
I think everything has been said. I have nothing new to offer, and I would offer that's an important thing in meetings, that we recognize that, like when we've said all the things, I at least don't have anything more to offer. Adrian, no? Yeah, I'm good.
All right, well, thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts. So I'll just close out by bringing it back to what are the benefits of doing this? As you all alluded to, it's entertaining, right? We get to build community by hearing each other's voices and opinions, and we got a little visual there, which I think helps with Zoom fatigue, right? If I had just spoken at you this whole time, you kind of get bored of hearing my voice and seeing just the same screen. So it changes things up and it encourages participation, especially if you pick, a video that has something intriguing about it. Which, if you dig around, there's many different videos on many different topics, as we know, or you can even pre-record something. And then I was going to say, just with what Lexi said, recently we showed for Black History Month a very explicit music video that had some police violence, things like that. So if you have something like that going on, you definitely want to, have a little disclaimer in the beginning, this could be triggering content, so that people can decide if they want to. But that's it. If you all have any questions or comments, let me know. If not, then I think Adrian has something to present.
So I'm going to go down a different path, but I do want to show, well, let me be clear about the path. one of the things I put onto the sticky boards at the beginning was like meetings that could have been emails or meetings that don't have to be meetings at all. So a tool that my team is using to communicate outside of Zoom meetings is Microsoft Teams. And I want to give you just a quick tour of how we use it in case that's inspirational for you. And show you quickly also how we use shifts, which is a feature within Microsoft Teams. Show of hands, who already is using Teams? Cool. Okay. How about shifts? All right. Okay. That helps me train my focus here. Oh man, let's see. Let me make sure I'm set up okay. We have here we go. Okay, so here is a little preview of my teams. We have a separate team for our student staff and for our administrative staff as well. So I'll show you the student staff side. I am set on do not disturb because that's the only way I've figured out so far to turn the notifications off during Zoom. And so there are times when like the notifications are just distracting. I may not be in a meeting. So I tell my students like, sometimes it says do not disturb, but it's really just me trying to turn off the notifications. Like I'm there, I just don't want to hear the sounds. So there's that. We have different channels help us focus the conversations. We have a channel just for our building managers, a channel for our info desk. I use this professional development channel to share opportunities across campus and professional development. I share things that aren't necessarily just professional development. So you'll see, hold on a sec. You'll see that I shared, not really pro dev, but if you've got fun Sykes pics, you can send us your campus photos for the yearbook. So I put in how to participate in the yearbook. Or like stuff that I read in the RAM roundup that I think might pertain to my students, I drop in here. So then there's another channel that we use for scheduling. The students can, I put a GIF to remind the snow team that because we were anticipating snow, for people who need to drop their shifts or swap them with someone who lives closer to campus. We put out that reminder. They can have conversations like, hey, I'm not able to take my shift. I'm not feeling well. Can someone grab that? And so then they have those, they make that decision, and then they can go over to shifts. And you can see we have our building managers scheduled here, the info desk down below. And then this is where we also share, my staff is in the building on rotation. So I have the full-time staff and I show, I'm showing you just the day. I have the staff to show you like, you can see when our shifts are in the rotation and what days we will be in the building. That's probably the most confusing part about this is when we mean shifts the proper noun and shifts the noun. Here, this gives you a good view of our schedule. And then the full-time staff and when we are in. One of the neat features about shifts is that you can create shift notes. So if you're anticipating something in particular that they need to know as a part of the time that they will be there, and then shift activity gives them activities that they need to focus on during their particular shift, like a checklist. And then another way we've been using it on a smaller scale, or using Microsoft Teams on a smaller scale, is the tasks. So we've created a task board. I know some of you use Trello, or what are the other like project management tools people are using? Asana. Monday is another one, I think. So We love Teams because everything is in here, and I try to put as much as I can in here as possible. So you'll see my GA and I have a planner together, and it's sorted. I like this board feature because it kind of sorts the tasks in buckets. You can see scheduling and technology and hiring, and so. But there's also charts to see where we're at with things, everything in a list if you prefer that, everything on a calendar if that helps you better too. Let me see, there was one other thing I wanted to point out. In addition to the channels and the conversations, we store all of our files here. So in the background is SharePoint. But we put everything in to SharePoint through Teams. So we don't go directly to the SharePoint website. Everything gets added into the Teams files, and like SharePoint is holding those documents for us here. So everything we share is here. And then you can pin very important stuff like our COVID protocol, our meeting expectations, and our staff handbook pinned to the top for people to access. So Teams really runs everything we do, and it's working really well for us and helping us increase our communication outside of meetings. Thanks for letting me share that with you.
Adrian,
Okay.
Yeah.
is that automatic that it's also shared to SharePoint, or how does that?
SharePoint is like the host. It's because SharePoint is also Teams. I'm sorry, SharePoint is also Microsoft. So for example, let me show you. Let me go back to sharing. I want to share my screen. So I click on this and it opens up my document still within Teams, like it's the window that's showing me the document. But I prefer to work in like Microsoft Word on these documents. And so see where it says open in desktop app. So I'll open in the desktop app. I'll continue to work. One moment. There it is. I'll continue to work on my document. And I'm wondering if I can show you. It opened up Word. There it is. Hold on, it's on the wrong screen. In the meantime, read my email. Okay, so you see I have it open now. And then I wanted to show you that like it really does live in SharePoint by showing you the path. Does it show you? Open file location. So this is SharePoint. This is where my document lives. It created a new section of SharePoint. But what Clayton did was say, hey, we're all going to use Teams. Everything's going to go in the files over here. And then he moved everything that we had in like SharePoint on its own over to Teams. Does that clarify things for you?
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Let me end the sharing now. Cool.
Yeah, and I want to recognize and honor it's 1:59. So if anyone has a last burning question, one other thing that I've mostly seen Dowdy do this, so I want to give credit where credit's due, but I know other folks have as well. If you assess things, it can be helpful to have Qualtrics give you a little QR code and invite people to use their cameras to take a quick picture, and they can get the link that way in case they don't open up a link in the chat. But yeah, I will appreciate everyone's time and energy today. And it is 2 p.m. So I am going to stop recording at this point. Any last burning questions? Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coordinating.
Have a wonderful weekend.